2023. Hello everyone, my name is Logan. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I know it's been a while since I've posted anything, but I wanted to take this time in the new year and really kind of just talk about the past with my channel, 2023, talk about the future, what it's going to be, and kind of like what my plans are for this channel and how it should essentially, I hope, play out this year. To reflect back on 2023 was kind of a mess for me. Personally, it was really hard at the beginning of the year. Professionally, it was very difficult. And there was just a lot of stuff that happened that interfered with me being able to create content for Gameengineer Labs, and then also like create content for my new job, which I'll kind of talk about. But at the beginning of 2023, I was working in a really toxic place. I was a technical architect working in a very stressful industry. And it started affecting me emotionally, physically, mentally. And so I hit this place where I knew I needed to leave, but I also needed to take some time off before I really got back into content creation. And especially because I wasn't doing anything with content creation at the time, at that previous role. It was really hard to balance just like the day-to-day needs of my job, but then also like try to figure out ways to create content. I ended up leaving that job and I decided that I wanted to do content creation in some like full-time capacity. So I started digging in and investigating, and I found out that there's a really cool role. And I ended up applying for a job at a company called Ionic. If you check out the Ionic YouTube channel, you'll see I'm pretty much a mainstay over there. But I ended up becoming a developer advocate. And what a developer advocate does is it's kind of like a hybrid technology marketing role, but it's really a position that fights for like engineers and developers, and is really geared towards like helping them be successful. And so I ended up leaving the really hardcore technical aspects of my job. Yes. Yes. And leaving for a company where I got to do this, create content, specifically technical content for a living. And it was crazy when I got this job. I was so excited, and I'm still excited. And I got to do that. And that did consume a little bit of my time at the beginning of the year. Like I said, I took a month off between that toxic job and Ionic and just really tried to get everything together. But kind of fast forward to when I first got into that role and I was working, I was really gearing up to start building out content for Gameengineer Labs and for Ionic. But unfortunately, a lot of personal stuff just got in the way and impacted my ability to be able to create videos. And this isn't an excuse, but like, at the beginning of the year, like my wife ended up having to get emergency surgery. So that kind of took some of my time, I would say like March, April timeframe, just to try to get everything good with her. She's fine. There's no problems. Everything's going really, really well. But, that took time, and it honestly kind of reprioritized things a little bit. But then shortly thereafter, her kind of emergency surgery, I found out that I actually had to get surgery on my spine. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about medical stuff. If you're friends or family and you know about everything that's gone on this year, like definitely skip to this timestamp right here, and you can avoid it because you guys have already heard the story if you know me personally. If you don't want to hear about medical stuff, go to that timestamp and obviously skip over it, because there's a lot of stuff that happened medically that might be triggering for some people, but I figured let's get it out of the way. So I've had spine issues for a really long time. I've been seeing specialists for the last few years. And over the last few years, I've done roughly 7 epidurals in multiple places in my spine. And it kind of got to a point where we realized that those epidurals weren't working anymore, so I needed to get a spinal surgery done. And my doctors and I basically concluded that it had to be done, and I needed to go do that. The unfortunate part is that with that initial surgery, it takes you out for about 6 to 8 weeks. I thought everything was going to be really awesome once that was done, and I'd be able to do content creation. So in mid-May, I ended up going into surgery, had my surgery. Everything went super well at the get-go. But then about 2 weeks later, I started having problems. And so one evening I wasn't feeling so good. And it was like roughly 2 weeks after surgery, probably about like 5 p.m. And I decided, hey, like I'm just going to go to bed, kind of sleep it off. I'm just not feeling good. Maybe I'm getting a little bit sick. Turns out I ended up waking up in the middle of the night. I had an extremely high fever, somewhere like around 103. I was in extraordinary pain. My back was in really bad shape. I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. And my lower back pain like literally prohibited me from walking at all. So we knew kind of something was off from my surgery, and we ended up deciding to go to the hospital. So I went back to the hospital, and during that process, I learned that I ended up getting a massive infection in my spine from the surgery, specifically an antibiotic-resistant bacteria in my spine.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
And it was pretty serious. The infection ended up compressing my spinal cord and basically was stopping me from walking. And mind you, it was, it was really acute. It happened very quickly in the span of like 12 hours. I went from feeling just a little bit tired to being fully in the hospital on IV antibiotics. And it was one of those situations where they have to like pack you with like the ice packs because my temperature was so high. They were worried about just all of the impacts from it. But so they were trying to keep my temperature down as I was in the hospital. But I ended up getting sepsis from that whole situation. And I spent quite a bit of time at the hospital. I was there for roughly 8 days. And during those 8 days, my surgery spot ended up, like I said, apologize if you don't like medical stuff, definitely skip to this timestamp once again. But my surgery spot ended up bursting open. So they had to essentially do a emergency surgery to make sure that everything was fine, to clear out the infection from my spine, make sure it didn't travel up or eat my spinal cord, which I guess that's a possibility. And things could have gone way, way south. But luckily that surgery went really well. But because of where it was at, there was, there's complications with that type of surgery and having an infection, like an extremely, I want to say, I don't know if it's extremely rare, but it's pretty uncommon to have that happen during a surgery. But it meant that I had to be on antibiotics, and I was really, really ill, and not like, take a pill antibiotics. They ended up having to do a PICC line. That PICC line went into my heart, and I was doing IV antibiotics, and I would have a nurse that would, once I got discharged from the hospital, I would have a nurse who would come by who would like help me with that process. But yeah, I would do IV antibiotics for 6 hours a day for a solid month of that. That was mentally very draining. I was extremely ill throughout the whole process. So it just kind of, knocked me down. But fast forward a couple weeks, a week before I was supposed to be done with my IV antibiotics, something started going wrong. I started getting like red dots all over my skin, and we knew something was kind of off. And we figured out that I was having a severe reaction to the IV antibiotics that were going into my system. So I immediately rushed back to the hospital, or not the hospital, but to my doctor's office. Luckily, it happened. The breakout was during a time when I was actually on my way to a doctor's appointment, so I was immediately being seen. But I ended up having this condition right here. But we determined, like, with that type of condition, I needed to get off the IV antibiotics because it's really serious. But after seeing the doctor, they were like, okay, we're going to switch you to a different IV antibiotic. It's going to take a couple of days, so we're going to give you IV Benadryl, and we're going to give you this new drug after 2 days. So I had to continue to use the antibiotic for a few days while we transferred over to the new stuff. fast forward a couple of days, got the new stuff, ended up giving myself the injection for it through my PICC line. And it turns out the new antibiotic I was severely allergic to. So I did that, went to bed, ended up waking up the next day, and I had essentially what were burns, like over 90% of my body. It wasn't anything crazy. Like, think of just like a really bad sunburn. But we knew at that point that something was going severely wrong with the drugs that I was taking. And so I ended up going back to the hospital, and things kind of went a little downhill for a little bit. So the allergic reaction from the medications, they thought essentially it had impacted my heart, it had impacted my skin. So I had basically had like blisters and burns kind of over a good portion of my body. I swelled up really bad. And then my heart rate, so like my resting heart rate was somewhere in like the 130s. And then when I would stand up, it would go into the 180s, which is not typical for me. Like, I've always been an active person. Like, I play hockey, I play sports, I'm at the gym pretty regularly. So being in the 180s from just standing is pretty crazy. So I ended up getting admitted for the hospital for a couple more days to kind of deal with that, to make sure everything was okay. And it really hit me hard. So that whole kind of event, luckily, like, I'm good now. Mostly everything's okay. I still kind of have some level of like back issues, just pain, but nothing like super debilitating. I just can't like be in certain spots or like sit down for long periods of time. But that took a solid 2 months to get through. Actually, probably even longer. But during that time frame, my wife ended up becoming like my full-time nurse. So I would have a nurse who would come by to help with like blood draws and do all that. But then also my wife was pretty much running my IVs, and then also was taking care of me. So she was like, you know, doing the chores that I couldn't do. She would cook dinners. She would still work her full-time job. And so it was really hard. You know, it was 3 months at least of her just taking over, and I could barely do things. Like, I still ended up like working through it. And honestly, like, my job, like, Ionic was totally amazing through the whole thing. And there was definitely times where I was like, hey, look, I can't work, I can't do this. And everybody's like, nope, don't worry about it. Get better, then come back. And so they really took care of me during that process. And my wife took care of me. So, but needless to say, during that time period, videos weren't being made. Content wasn't being made. It was, you know, just a fight to stay up and not sleep all day. Cause, you know, I had a massive infection, a very serious infection, and they had really rare side effects from the drugs that I was taking. So things just kind of went out of control till like halfway through the year. Also during that time period, which strange story, but my dad ended up having a massive stroke during that time period. And literally it happened the same day that I had my initial incident with my back surgery and having to go rush to the hospital. So we were actually right next to each other on the same floor. My dad was at the same hospital, so we were basically neighbors for a couple of days. And then the other part was we ended up losing a family member that same weekend. So it was like in the span of 3 days, I ended up getting a massive infection in my spine. My dad ended up having a stroke. We lost a family member. And so it was just like one thing after another, and it really just kind of took me out of the fight from halfway through the year. Fast forward a little bit, kind of going through my recovery process. And, you know, I was 2 months out from when everything happened, and I thought things were getting better. Like, I was getting ready to start making content again. And unfortunately, you know, we ended up having to put my dog down, which was, that was tough, you know, especially after just everything that had happened. And, you know, my dog Oliver was kind of the one who like got me through a lot of the medical stuff. When it was happening, he was like just there, you know, when I was in bed, when I had a hard time getting up, he was like right beside me. So that one hit really hard, you know, and it knocked me out. Like, I just didn't want to make content. I don't even know really how to describe it. And I'm not trying to do like woe is me type content. That's not what this is, but it just made me not want to do anything. Like, I got pretty depressed for a while about the whole situation. And, you know, it took a good amount of like therapy and talking to people and just like really trying to understand like what happened during this whole process. It was just, you know, I think it just kind of took me out of the fight for a little bit. I can honestly say now that things are going a lot better. Life has really turned around in these last few months. Ended up going back to work and like being able to create content again. So I've been doing that on the Ionic YouTube channel. And with the turn of the new year, I really have decided that like this is what I want to do. I want to be able to make content. I want to make content for Ionic. I want to make content for Game Engineer Labs and like really show off, like make this my year. 2024 is going to be the year that you guys see me create content and create cool stuff too. You know, I've done little videos here and there where it's like I created the Pikachu, which was November of 2022. And then like throughout this year, I kind of did a video on Maxwell, the animatronic. I'm working on an iMech, which that video will be released next week. But I want to talk about what this channel is. So the reason why I called this video or call this channel Game Engineer Labs is because I want to create video game content, not just the playing of video games, but the creation of things that are in the video games that we love. Think Hacksmith style videos, think cosplay type videos. Like I want to be able to create all of those things just from our favorite video games that we play. So that's why it's called Game Engineer Labs. It's supposed to be an engineering like channel where I build these things from video games. So Pikachu is a great example, right? We do a 3D printing project, we finish it off, and like I show you the process of how I create it. But I want to elevate what I create here, right? I don't want to do just 3D printing, right? I want to do a combination of things. So I want to be able to design those things from the video games from scratch. I want to be able to 3D print those things. And I want to be able to make those things move, give them life, you know, not just stationary objects that you 3D print, but actually allow them to move. Think of animatronics. And it's kind of why I've been doing videos like Maxwell, the iMech video that's going to be coming out next week. And I'm going to be focusing on that. So there's going to be a couple of pillars to the content that I create. So there's, because these videos and this type of content and creation is honestly time consuming, it's difficult. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. You know, I'm going to be sometimes creating videos around the process of creating these things. And sometimes that might be tutorials, that might be learning new stuff, but it's going to be around 3D modeling. So using things like Learning Blender, using Nomad Sculpt, using Fusion 360 to create what I want to create. In the 3D printing realm, like obviously I've kind of got that down, but you know, purchasing, getting new 3D printers, messing around with different, I guess just strategies for 3D printing, electronics. So learning Arduino, learning Raspberry Pis, learning motors, learning the electrical side of things. And then also just being able to like put those things together to create. The thing I want to incorporate is programming, because by trade I'm a software engineer, so I haven't really shown off the coding aspect of things, the coding side of things. But you know, obviously I'll be showing off some of the stuff that I code here, and then also on the Ionic YouTube channel, because I plan to use a whole bunch of Ionic's products to make that work and incorporate it into my full-time job. And that's kind of the goal, is to create content that is cross-platform, can go on multiple channels, but also is rewarding for me and like is creative for me, but also that you guys like to see, right? Like I have these plans, the project that I'm going to be working on after the iMech video that you see next week, I'm going to be start working on a BD1 droid. That's all 3D printed and has been sitting on my other desk over here probably for a solid like 3-4 months. You know, I want to be able to create something like Pikachu. I want to do an animatronic Pokemon. How cool would that be, right? And so that's some of the projects that I'm thinking about, but I also want to have it correspond to just really popular video games that are coming out, like from major studios. Like how cool would it be to try to do, I don't know, something from Baldur's Gate or something from Zelda? And that's kind of what I've been doing, right? Is planning out what this is going to look like and some of the projects I'm going to be working on. But this is my commitment to do a video a week. I can't guarantee I'm always going to do a video a week, but you know what? I'm going to try it. This is the year where I do a video a week to create and to show you guys and to build this channel. And honestly, the support so far has been crazy cool. It's awesome to see that people are subscribing. I know they're, you know, I'm small potatoes compared to some of these other engineering channels and creative channels, but I want to start being like Nerdforge, Hacksmith, God, just any of the content creators who do like creating of video games and cosplay and technical things. So this is going to be a new step for me. I'm going to be learning as I go. I'm learning camera stuff. I've checked out my TikTok. I'm learning how to do all that. I'm learning how to do all the sound stuff, but we're going to start doing it, and I'm going to start creating content around this regularly. And 2024 is going to be my commitment to do that. Overall, I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited. I'm losing my voice over it because I've been trying to talk about this for the last hour straight. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you know, you stick around and see what I'm going to be doing in the future. I really appreciate you being here. And let's see what the future holds, guys. I will see you later. Thanks.
You feel alive, let's hit the dance floor. Don't work too hard, might break a backbone. Return of the Mac, the king is back though. Corvette and cash, I never lack those. She saw the stone, you know how that go.